Hello. Good morning. Morning. Okay. Uh, as you can see up on the slides, this is welcome to this conference on the sustainable global supply chain. My name is Anant Iyer, and I'm director of the center on behalf of the Krannert School of Management at Purdue University. I hope all of you had time to catch a quick breakfast. This is part of Krannert's Global Supply Chain Management Initiative. And I should say three welcomes. Welcome, of course, to Purdue University, which is the place we're sitting, part of this big university. The Krannert School of Management, which is the business school at Purdue. And the Global Supply Chain Management Initiative, which is in its second year of existence here at Purdue. Now, one of the reasons I mention these three things is that many of these things don't exist without the permission of the administration, and in particular, to welcome all of you, I'd like to invite our Dean, Dean Rick Kozier, who's Dean and Leads Professor of Management at Krannert. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks, Anant. I didn't know that we gave permission to do anything. You know, that's interesting. That I have new powers that have been identified today by Anant. Thank you. Well, I'd like to add my welcome on behalf of the Krannert School of Management to all the participants in what is a really terrific conference. I want to personally thank Anant Iyer and Mary Palat for doing just a wonderful job. And this center is terrific, and their leadership has really made it the best in the country, in my view. I'd also like to welcome all of our attendees here, especially the sponsors and speakers involved in today's program. If you're not a sponsor, we're always looking for other sponsors. So if you're part of the conference today, see Anant afterward, and we'll be happy to sign you up as an official member of this great organization. This is really an important conference. When I looked at the initial materials, and I liked the sustainability topic, and then I even liked it better when I looked at your three main points. They were up there a minute ago. A robust and thriving global supply chain. Mary says that's kind of the magic behind the supply chain. That's intriguing. An environmentally friendly green supply chain. Interesting. And a supply chain sensitive to the issues of corporate social responsibility. An area when I did do a little research a few years ago that I tried to focus on because it's so important. In my view, it's a win-win to be socially responsible and make a lot of money. They go together. And on the way over here, I just picked up my new issue of Business 2.0. If you haven't seen it, the title on the cover is Go Green, Get Rich. Saving the planet has suddenly become good business. I don't know how suddenly it is, but it is good business. Trust me. One of our speakers we had in last year, we have a series on leadership and ethics, was Jerry Greenfield from Ben & Jerry's. Gave a great presentation about how, with a social responsible foundation of their strategy, they made a lot of money over the years. And then, just to make sure everybody was happy with his talk, he provided free ice cream afterward. Have you got free ice cream? Probably not. Also love the case competition format here. I think what a great learning experience that is for our students. Appreciate the judges being part of that. That's obviously critical. Understand we have an MBA group here from China, even as part of the competition. That says a lot for the draw of the program. As I mentioned, we're very proud of the Global Supply Chain Management Center and its really significant contributions, which will continue on today. But Krannert's also had a few good things happen. I'll just mention those briefly. Generally, with the rankings, the good news just keeps coming in. The Financial Times released their poll Monday, and we moved up 29 spots in that survey. If only our football and basketball teams could do as well. And the reason why we were kind of anxious to get the word out on that, not that we're competitive here in the state of Indiana, but we did finish 17 places ahead of those other two major business schools in the state of Indiana. So, you know, they're great programs, but we were happy with that result. We were top 30 program in the United States. When you look at our operations management and supply chain activities, we're in the top 10 in every ranking that you'll find, top 5 many times. This really reflects extreme quality that we have in areas related to the Global Supply Chain Management Center, and that center is one of the reasons, frankly, why we're so highly ranked. We have put a lot of focus on globalization to add to our analytical foundations that we've had here at Krannert for many years. We continue to develop programs with Tsinghua University in Beijing, with Beida University in Beijing. Both of those were very successful last year. Some of our MBA students are involved in this program, took part in that Tsinghua experience, and will possibly do it this year, which we're very excited about the program that's coming May. We're developing new programs in Taiwan, Hong Kong, even investigating some programs in Dubai, where I was about a month ago. My one requirement when they returned to Dubai, though, is they put me up in the Burj Al Arab Hotel. If you've ever seen that, it's a big sail-looking hotel. It's the one that Tiger Woods hit some golf balls off the landing pad for the helicopter, and they had a big tennis match on. This is an amazing place. It's a mere $2,000 a night. So, you know, if you want to take the spouse and go on a little break, stop by. It's an incredible place. So we're looking at a lot of different places around the world to have some of our great programs. We have great students here. If you're in the hiring mode and you're one of our corporate guests, you'll love interacting with our graduates and our undergraduate students. One of the areas we're consistently good in when we do these rankings is recruiter evaluations of our graduates. They report things like great work ethic, tremendous quantitative skills, one I really like, ethics and integrity, very highly regarded of our students. And now we're getting to see the results of our global strategy with getting some very positive reports on that. So if you do hire our graduates, I think you'll be singing their praises just like we see when these surveys are conducted. So I'm just here to give you a brief welcome, which I just about completed. And again, I'd like to express my appreciation for everybody being here. And a special message, if there's any Bears fans out there, go Colts. Notice the blue tie. Thanks. Have a great day. You want to take your stuff? That's your stuff right there.
Thank you, Rick. Regardless of what Rick says, you do need some permission to operate. You do need to want to operate, but you need some permission to operate. Just a few quick comments. Our focus, of course, today is the sustainable global supply chain. And part of the word sustainable is also for us as a center to sustain student interest. A lot of this doesn't happen, of course, without an organization. And if you see me comfortable here, that everything is going fine, it's because of a whole bunch of people who make things work. So I want to recognize a few of them. I'm sure you've run into them. I want to recognize Mary Pillot. Mary's sitting way down there worrying about whether everything goes perfectly, and all I have to do is do my part. So there's Mary. Also Karen Pulliam. Karen is sitting next to Mary. And you see a whole bunch of graduate assistants with the word host or ambassador attached to their badge. So these are the people here to see to it that you have a great time and to solve any issues that might arise. There's a lot of planning that's gone into it, but we still recognize that things can go wrong, in which case we want to be there to fix it. There are a couple of people on the faculty side. Professor Svenja Sommer is a faculty member in operations, and she was involved with me in writing the case, which was used in the MBA case competition. Emmanuel Kodzi is back there. Emmanuel is a postdoctoral associate here with the center. Purdue Conferences, Erica Wilson, and the staff. There are a lot of people. I don't know their names. So these are all the people who saw to it that the logistics of running this place happen. So I want to acknowledge them before we go into the details. Conferences don't happen without sponsors, and sponsors give both their time, because this is a really important component, and their money, which is also an equally important component in the university. Our conference sponsors were Starbucks, the Gallo Family Vineyards, E&J Gallo, Chromecraft Revington, which is a furniture company here, which has its headquarters here in West Lafayette, the Purdue Cyber, the Center for International Business Education and Research, Philip Morris USA, the Krannert Graduate Student Association, and the Ford Foundation. They were the conference sponsors. The center that Rick mentioned, the Global Supply Chain Management Initiative, is part of a manufacturing management center called GSCMI, which has been around for 25 years. Part of what we look for is continued nourishment and input from them. And there are a whole host of companies who have played a role here that I've listed here for you to look at. Bottom line, what we want to do is to maximize the value of your time here. So if there's anything we can do to improve that, please let us know. We're here for input. We're within a learning organization, a university, which means that this doesn't give us the luxury to make mistakes, but we do make mistakes periodically. It's not intentional, so please correct us. So with that, I want to get you to sort of just at least give you a few ideas around the theme for this conference. And one of the things that we were thinking about 6 months ago as we were trying to define a theme was to define something that is broad enough to encompass perhaps a strategy, and at the same time try to encapsulate it in a few words. So here's our attempt. So we were trying to define sustainability, and within sustainability, as sort of Rick mentioned a few minutes ago, we picked 3 themes, all of which could be encapsulated under the title sustainability. There's no question that creating something that's robust, and the focus here is on the word robust. Creating a robust supply chain, and again, if I were to put my professor hat here, is creating something that will withstand shocks that you don't know where they're going to come from. So if I were to sort of look at any business, you say, well, are there surprises? There clearly are surprises for us as professors when you come into our office and are dealing with students. I'm sure there are surprises of various kinds in industry that you may or may not have anticipated. And the key, of course, is to have a system that's flexible enough to adapt and overcome those surprises. So clearly, robustness is an important issue. That robustness clearly increases in its need when you're spread across country boundaries and you're stretched across various entities in the supply chain over which you may not have direct control. And if one were to look at the modern supply chain, it clearly has that feature. Rick mentioned the Go Green, Get Rich piece, which a lot of people hope it's true. But the notion of being environmentally friendly, we're sitting here in the state of Indiana, and one of the things we hear repeatedly from our ag group is the role of biofuels immediately in the future. And there are lots of things associated with it, and one of the questions is whether that as a dimension of performance starts becoming important. Now, that's something that can upset a lot of products in the marketplace. People can very quickly retreat from one set of products and switch to another set of products. So clearly, that's something to keep an eye out for. And finally, supply chains don't exist in a vacuum. There is a company, it makes its products, it sells its products, but it's sort of given the liberty to operate within a society. So there clearly are societal concerns regarding how you operate. One only has to look at the newspaper to realize that there's a David-Goliath fight that happens periodically, and it's the little person who can now stand up and stop various things in its tracks. So if I were to sort of summarize all of this, clearly what this brings up is the notion of the broader impact on society of a company's supply chain. And part of what we want the theme of this conference to sort of push is to get us to think about what that broader impact is and how can it be, and I use the word managed to suggest that how can you anticipate what that is and thereby be proactive in terms of actions to take. Now, over the last couple of weeks, I've been sort of monitoring all the magazines that show up, and one of the things that we do as professors is to read a whole bunch of material. So here was a picture that showed up, and I want to sort of look at this picture, and hopefully you'll wonder, what is this? Okay. Well, what this is a robot that's cutting a tree that's submerged in a lake. Okay. Now, hopefully at this point you haven't decided there's something wrong with him. Okay. But I want to try to make the following case. First, in the next slide, I'm going to give you a little description of what this is. This actually appeared as a picture in Wired magazine that we received at home last week. Okay. Now, what is this? So just keep this in mind. What is this? This is a picture of a robot called Sawfish. Okay? It's made by a manufacturing company called Triton Engineering. And what does Sawfish do? Sawfish is a robot that permits underwater logging. Okay? Now you might say, why do I care about underwater logging? So that picture, which is this picture is a picture of trees submerged in the Utsa Lake in Manitoba, Canada. And these trees have been submerged since 1954. Okay? And incidentally, this one lake has $1.2 billion worth of timber submerged in this lake. Now, what's the issue with the tree? Given the fact there was a dam that was built, the trees are dead. So this is a dead tree. But because it's within this cold, oxygen-poor environment, it's still something that if you harvest has all the properties of wood. It hasn't rotted yet. So the rotting is preserved. So in other words, what we're doing is cutting dead trees that are submerged within the lake. What does that do? It helps clear up the water and the debris. It uses up these dead trees. It's eco-friendly. We need all of the wood. And the wood that comes out of these trees submerged inside the lake can now be branded and sold. And in fact, very soon you're going to see these products in the Home Depot, in Lowe's, etc., trees that are harvested from this lake. Well, how much of this wood exists out there in the world? The article mentions there are about 45,000 such lakes around the world with $50 billion worth of timber submerged inside the lake. Okay. Now, why do I bring this up? I want to ask the question, is this a sustainable wood supply chain? Well, why? You might say, well, all we're doing is eliminating debris from the lake of trees that are already dead. Okay. We're finding a way to do it using technology, because there's quite a bit of technology involved. There's an interesting, if you're an engineer and you want to sort of read it, there's some interesting technology involved. You add a few airbags to this tree so that it floats up to the top of the lake and you harvest it and all of those things. It's eco-friendly because you're eliminating a dead tree. It's good for the water because you're cleaning up debris. And so if you start looking at some of the win-win-win in that group, potentially, is this a metaphor for choosing technologies and products out there which all they're doing, or one of the ways you can position them, is they're solving one problem and in the process solving another problem. Now, I bring this up because once I started looking at it, this can be used, if you probe a little bit, there are a whole bunch of products out there. For example, one of the products I read about, which I didn't bring up here, is a company which makes a fiber called Ingeo. And this is a fiber that's made from corn. So it's 100%, everything in this fiber is made from corn. There are a whole bunch of products coming out. You can buy socks, you can buy apparel, etc., all made from corn. And of course, you're sitting in the state of Indiana. Corn is good business, which means that potentially the fiber, the associated patents that come from it, the intellectual property, etc. One question for us, both as academics, as well as for a lot of you as students, and for a lot of you from companies, is to think about, is it possible that there'll be a whole mix of products out there that are very different from existing products, which might appeal more to customers because they have a theme associated with it that have the word sustainable? Now, you could look at this, and I think there is room for discussion. You could go back and say, what you need to do is reverse that dam you built in 1954. And I have no problems with that. In fact, that's a discussion we could have too. But eliminating that dam wouldn't eliminate the dead trees that are sitting there. Okay? So there's a lot of opportunity for discussion. And of course, what happens here in this business is, as long as we've got a dialogue going, interesting things can happen. Now, what is the Global Supply Chain Management Initiative? So this is a little bit about what is happening here at Krannert. One of the things we do as faculty to get students interested is create what I call options. And one of the roles of the center is to coordinate this option, which we call the Global Supply Chain Management option. Our logic, or our domain of interest, is to focus on management issues which involve movement or decision-making across country boundaries, as an example. So it could be operations with locations across countries, markets across countries, or suppliers across countries as part of the supply chain. There are a bunch of topics and a whole, one of the ways that sort of Krannert survives, we're not a very large school. We have about 100 faculty, which is considered small by university standards. One of the ways we survive is by seeing to it that the functional areas that are involved are basically all the functional areas of the school. So topics include exchange rate effects, contracts, regulations, negotiations, supply chain design, et cetera. Those are the set of topics that are discussed in the classes. You'll hear later in the conference about global internships. One of our alums is a managing director of a company in India called TVS Motor. There were 24 of our students who did an internship in December in Bangalore, working in this company. So you're going to hear a little bit about their experiences with spending some time there. Our goal is to organize conferences to bring attention to topics that are not currently standard topics in business schools. They're topics that a lot of people are interested in, a lot of faculty are interested in, and one of the ways we learn about it is by listening to speakers from industry who give us an idea of what's going on. We welcome projects. There are a number of projects that are going on. I'm not going to give you a lot of details. But either Mary or I can tell you a lot about projects students have been doing with companies. And finally, there's nothing that gets students excited as competitions. So case competitions play a very important role, and last evening we had both an undergraduate case competition as well as an MBA case competition. This is the cover page of the Krannert magazine, and one of the things you'll notice is that going global is not an option. It's something that we have to do. It's something that our students have to figure out a way to feel comfortable with. If you don't recognize the entire picture, this picture, I sort of, the person putting together the front cover showed me this before my class was inserted in it. So I've pulled my class out, so you got the picture before. So this is a classroom at Rawls Hall, along with sort of the Great Wall, which is sort of a good way to get one to think about the global connection. Now, our agenda for today, we have a number of wonderful speakers who have been gracious enough to give us their time and their energy. Our first panel will talk about corporate social responsibility, and our three speakers who are up in the podium here, Sue Mecklenburg from Starbucks Corporation, Israel Moreno-Barcelo from CEMEX, and Grant Hellworth from PricewaterhouseCoopers. The way we're going to structure it, I'll just briefly go through the agenda so you have an idea of the plan for today. Our plan is to have our speakers provide their perspectives, and we've freed up sufficient time for us to have a discussion. And we strongly encourage you to have your questions. I think there's an index card that's included in your file. You could write down a question and pass it along. We'll also have students with microphones come up to you. Please use the microphone, because one of the things we're going to do is to record all of it, put it up on the web, so some of our students who couldn't attend can access it. So this is our first session. All three of them have a lot of experience with thinking about these issues, and we look forward to their insights. So that's our first panel. The second panel is going to focus on green supply chains. We have two speakers from Method, Adam Lowry and Gretchen Siffring, and Jeff Jeffrey from ERMCO. So we look forward to getting them to tell us all the challenges with respect to creating and delivering green products and succeeding, which is something which we're looking forward to learning about. Now, incidentally, one of the interesting green products that a number of our students in the ag department have done is to create soya-based crayons. So one of the products that you can get here, and it's sort of a student project in the ag group. The third panel focuses on having a sustainable supply base, and we have Kathy Kozik from Motorola and Mario Hajwald from Eaton Corporation to talk to us about creating a sustainable supply base. Finally, we have the final decisions regarding the MBA case competition winners has not happened. In fact, the three teams who are finalists have not been informed who they are. We want to hang on to the suspense a little bit, you know. One of the things you'll get to do is to hear them present their case, and you'll get to the judges will then be, you'll see the judges actually evaluating the students. And that's the session from 3:30 to 4:30. We'll also give the winning undergraduate team an opportunity to present their analysis of the Starbucks case. The last item would be the internship presentation. So in December 2006, as I mentioned, our students were in India for the TVS Motor sponsored internships. Now, of course, a lot happens during the breaks, and we clearly admit that there are many organic connections that happen that cannot be planned for. What we can just plan for are breaks. So one of the reasons I put all the breaks here is just to let you know there are many breaks. So please use the opportunity to connect with our students, to talk to each other, and if interesting things materialize, we'll call that planned. So what's our goal? We're an educational institution, so clearly our goal is we're in the education business. All we can do is create opportunities for you to interact, ask questions, discuss, and learn. And we're here in learning mode. As a professor, I have a big pad of paper to take notes. So that's the framework. We want to hear about best practice. We want to hear about upcoming challenges. And feel free to challenge all of us to say, what are you doing as far as this is concerned? We want to hear about it. We clearly want to develop student and faculty interest, and to the extent possible, the rest of the audience, we want to create some interest in creating sustainable supply chains. We had a great talk by Paul Goodman yesterday in the evening, and one of the things he described is a supply chain to deliver hot lunches in Bombay, India, that's been in operation for the last 100 years. So talk about sustainable. That's a sustainable entity. We want to build links between Krannert and us as a school and companies and government. And one of the reasons we want to do that is that we want this interest to be sustained. We want to foster links and create opportunities for our students. So thank you very much for coming. We're happy to give you more and more information and load you up with a lot of information about Krannert. But what we'd like to do is at least start by getting you and hopefully giving you an opportunity to hear from our panel of speakers, so we have an opportunity to both ponder challenges that companies are facing and what they're doing in response. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Sue Mecklenburg, and Sue is Vice President, Sustainable Procurement Practices at Starbucks. I want to thank Sue for taking the time from her schedule. Both Sue and Tim Kern spent quite a bit of time helping me figure out how to write the case for the undergraduate case competition. Sue joined Starbucks in 1984 as the company's first director of environmental affairs. In 2001, she was promoted to Vice President of Business Practice. In a new role as Vice President, Sustainable Procurement Practices, she will lead Starbucks' efforts to become a more socially conscious procurement organization beyond coffee. So without further ado, I invite Stu to make her presentation.
Good morning. It's well, welcome. We have. I'm happy to be here, and we have lots of new people coming in. So please take your seats. It's great to have all of you here.
Remember my school days. This is about to show after the first class.
While they're getting seated, I have to say I really enjoyed. I got here last night in time for a couple of the case presentations, and prior to coming to Starbucks, I was the director of an environmental management program for MBAs at the University of Washington, and it was just a pleasure to see the students and to listen to the case presentations, and I really enjoyed that a great deal. I joined Starbucks, I don't know if you said 1984 or 94, but it was 94. I've been there for 12 years, which is a long time at Starbucks. When I joined, there were only 400 stores, and I was sorry that I hadn't joined when it was a small company. But as I go through my presentation, you'll see we've grown quite a bit since then. I did start out I was the first director of environmental affairs within Starbucks, and then took on the role of community affairs, business practices, which was really about aligning the way we run the business with our social responsibility. Also started our corporate social responsibility reporting, and developed the public policy program that we have in what I consider a great movement within the company, having been in the corporate social responsibility department for 12 years. Last May moved into procurement. And this is very interesting to have a CSR person actually in the procurement organization, in supply chain. I report to the Senior Vice President of Coffee and Global Procurement. So I would say that this is really, within our company, the integration of corporate social responsibility into supply chain very, very directly. At Starbucks, our core product is an agricultural product, and when we talk about sustainability, it's real clear to us what that means, and it's talking about the sustainability of the people who grow the product that enable us to serve customers every day. So I feel very much at home here in this conference and the topics that are being discussed because they're so core to the way our business operates. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about Starbucks, and I need to give you some information about coffee itself. I know most of you probably start your day with it, but there's a lot behind that product that you might not know. A little bit about the coffee supply chain, and then about Starbucks purchasing practices, how and why they're sustainable. So first, talk about Starbucks. We are a vertically integrated company. We buy our own coffee, we import it, we roast it in our own plants, we package it, we distribute it, and then we sell it wholesale and retail in our own stores. And yes, there are other people who help us along the way, but we have the entire chain of procurement and production and delivery within Starbucks. We have 12,000 retail stores around the country. We open between 6, and yesterday I saw the announcement that we're going to be open 8 stores a day. We do that in 38 countries. We have 135,000 people who work for us. We call them partners because we give even part-time employees stock options, and so we consider them real partners in the business. We serve about 40 million customers a week, and we have wholesale accounts, colleges, hotels, airlines. We also have a consumer products goods organization, which has products like bottled Frappuccino and ice cream. We have an entertainment business, which is primarily CDs, but also some books and beginning some movies, the distribution of those. So there's always new things that we're trying to do. And despite the fact that we may seem to be on most every street corner, we actually account for only 2% of the global coffee purchases. I think it speaks to the power of the brand, how large we're perceived to be, but the reality from a supply perspective, we buy a relatively small amount of coffee. But there'll be more on that later. So what about social responsibility at Starbucks? We have a mission that was adopted when we were a very small company, and it's virtually unchanged over the years. It has a set of guiding principles that really on which we base our company's decisions, and they are things like contributing positively to our community and environment, and having enthusiastically satisfied customers,